his help, we could not have gone to the Drugs Controller of India, because the Drugs Controller of India, even though MB12 is approved in India as the standard preparation, oh my God, the amount of papers he has asked. And thank God for my two advisors, Dan was a new brander. They are my advisors, they have helped me, they gave me all the papers, all the reports. So I have satisfied Drug Controller, now it's under peer review. We hope to get government approval before we can go ahead. Professor I.C. Verma is the father of genetic medicine in India, the foremost authority. He is the co-author for this study. And I am grateful, eternally grateful to all the staff of UDAN who are wholehearted with me on this project. Number of children proposed is to be enrolled is 100. Age range 2 to 7 years, duration of study 3 years of follow-up. Not even 6 months, it's a 3-year project. So that we should definitely know, is something working or is it not working? No short term. Legalities, we have applied to Drug Control of India's permission to be followed by the Ethics Committee approval of Gangaram, that's the tertiary care hospital where Dr. Verma works, and we have to get it registered after the Indian Council of Medical Research should take maybe, fingers crossed. Informed written voluntary consent and all necessary safety guidelines as per the Helsinki Protocol will be followed. Our hypothesis is that the brain should be a neat and clean drawing room like that. But in autism, due to genetic and environmental pollutant factors, there's a lot of muck in the brain cell and it can't work. And there's a big drain which is continuing to pollute the brain. So first thing is block this drain and drain out the polluting matter. Repairs and all can wait. Only standard therapy must be continued throughout. That is sensory integration, ABA therapy, speech therapy, those are constant. But no intervention initially, by HBOT especially, until we have cleaned the brain. After we have cleaned the brain, now is the time to repair. If we preempt the cleaning process of the brain and we repair the brain, and the brain is still dirty with toxic matter, what have we gained? In 6 to 8 months, the child is going to go back to what he was. We first clean the brain, stop the pollution, give controlled diet, all vitamins, minerals, correct dose, healthy child, healthy mind, then treat with HBOT. So that the brain, once revived, stays revived for a longer period, if not longer. So, our is a 4-phase study. First 6 months, restore normal health and weight, use GFCF, need-based vitamins, minerals, treat gut infections, etc. Phase 2, add MB12. Phase 3, detect heavy metal overload and treat with oral DMPS. Why here? Because the Ethics Committee of Gangaram put his foot down. You cannot test for heavy metal until you are at this stage. I said, why? It is unethical to detect that a child has got heavy metal poisoning and you are not ready to treat. So you will only test for heavy metals when you are in phase 3. You can't test it before that, and we had to bow down to that. Phase 4, we will start HBOT, and this is our project. First, standard therapy, SIT, that is sensory integration therapy, ABA, OT, speech, special education. Next, GFCF, hypoallergenic balanced diet. We are testing the whole gamut of tests. Micronutrient, every vitamin and mineral in the correct dose, and gut dysbiosis management. MB12 to restore brain activity, restore glutathione pool, that will be the third. Next, oral DMPS to remove heavy metals only in those detected, and then HBOT. So this is the graph of our pattern. Little complex, but let me tell you. Phase 1, Phase 2, Phase 3, Phase 4. Phase 1, GFCF diet, vitamin, minerals, gut dysbiosis, purely child. Now at this stage, we do the MTHR polymorphism as a test to see how accurate this is in telling us 6 months later, is it a worthwhile test? Now at this place, there will be a double-blind, placebo-controlled randomized study. One group of 50 will get MB12 placebo for 6 months, another group will get active MB12 for 6 months, and then we break the code and to see who are the responders. All responders will continue thereafter to get MB12 diet through on humanitarian grounds. At this phase, we will do the heavy metal testing. Those are heavy metal negative. Now here is a dilemma. I cannot do a double blind for DMPS. If a child is heavy metal positive, I have to treat. So this metal phase has to be single blind. I will have to know, so that I can ethically decide which child gets DMPS, which child does not. But the therapist will not know, the parents will not know. So they will be blind. Only I, as a dispenser of medicines, will have a code. The reports will not be shown to any parents for 6 months. They'll all be under lock and key with me. So I've told the path lab, All reports come by email to me, you will not give a printout. They are under my custody. Until there is an adverse reaction, then we will reveal it. Otherwise, no child get a report. So we do a single phase at this time, single blind phase. After this, we break the code at 6 months to see the responders and non-responders. And then balance 24 months MD12 plus DMPS only if needed, and HWAT 100 sessions. And this will same way, they all go common after that. We have done a non-trial pilot study so far to see what's going on. Reducing substances in urine did it for a year in more than 50 cases and found an unusually high 30% incidence of Watcher's trait and galactosemia. But as Dr. I.C. Verma pointed out, immaterial, because by 2 years, which is your minimum age, these children must have liver enlargement and liver dysfunction, which our liver function test did not show. Therefore, this appears to be a false marker, because the liver function test at 2 months, at 2 years, 3 years, we are going to do all these tests every 3 months. They do not show liver dysfunction. Therefore, these two do not appear to have a clinical bearing. All children are put on GFCF diet, which means I don't have to bother about galactosemia even if it is present. Mild eosinophilia is common, maybe due to the high prevalence of intestinal infections in India. We can't do specific culture by ETEC, EPEC, it's too common and our children get diarrhea too often. So, routine stool cultures are equivocal, they mean nothing. So, if the child has got diarrhea, it is a bacterial diarrhea, we treat with appropriate antibiotics or metronidazole. Candida culture we are routinely doing once in 3 months. Where positive, we are treating with a standard fluconazole or nystatin. Iron profile, more than 75% children we have tested, so this is a mandatory test. Are iron deficient? This is closely related to the vegetarian diet with poor iron intake and plus the phytates in food, which further inhibit iron intake. We have also done the serum iron, low ferritin and low transferrin saturation, the rule. This is a test being done every 3 months, mandatory. And according to that, we give iron as prophylactic or therapeutic dose. This is the therapeutic dose. Once they reach normalcy, we go on to prophylactic doses. Calcium status, since we are giving GFCF, even if the calcium is normal, we are now giving calcium supplements and checking calcium every 3 months to ensure that the calcium status and the alkaline phosphatase status, which is the marker of bone marrow turnover, is normal. Severe hypovitaminurinemia, this is a routine test that we are doing. Not vitamin D level, but 125 dihydroxy D3 in every child. And we almost fell off our chairs, excepting for children who are not on a calcium vitamin D supplement. Just about every child we tested is at the bottom of the scale or below the scale. And they say that India is such a sunny country that you don't get hypovitaminurinemia. What they forget is that these children are special need children. They are not allowed to run bare-bodied in the sun, unsupervised, to play polo or hockey or whatever like that, hide and seek. They are always kept indoors and GFCF diet, and we are predominantly vegetarian, and vitamin D mostly is a non-vegetarian.